and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you as always for being here. I appreciate you more than I can tell you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I have some brand new Easter DIYs to share, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting.
DIY number one. All right, I have a bunch of floral picks and some greenery as well as some ribbon. The floral picks are from the Hobby Lobby that I had gotten on clearance end of season. They ended up being like $1 a piece. It was awesome. The greenery is from Walmart that I picked up a while ago, as well as also a few little sprigs left from a pick that I'd gotten from Hobby Lobby. And then the ribbon is from Costco. It's some of my Kirkland's ribbon. And I'm going to use that ribbon strip as a foundation piece. So I'm trying to layer on this pick that I'm kind of pulling apart because I want to have it at different lengths. And so I'm using the ribbon to help me have something to which I can secure it. We're going to be kind of making a spray here. So once I had all of that laid out, I went ahead and grabbed my greenery and I started trying to piece this together. So I'm sorry, part of me is off camera here, but I'm basically pulling this apart too. If you haven't followed me before or watched me before, I tend to pull apart most of my floral picks and my greenery picks because that way I can manipulate them a little bit more to my liking. So I'm actually not going to pull apart these two little boxwood picks. I'm going to just kind of put them together and fluff them up, and then I'm going to add in the other greenery to them one at a time. I'm just going to intersperse it. I didn't have a lot of that type left. So just using a little piece here and there, kind of interwoven. And then once I had it all together, I kind of pulled it, I pulled it together with the orange to kind of get an idea of what it was going to be looking like. And I decided I needed to trim off those stems a little bit, but I'll come back to that. In the meantime, I'm going to try and see how, I'm visual, right? So I need to see it all laid out before I commit. So now I've got my hot glue. I'm going to go ahead and start securing it in the same manner that I had laid it out. So I had kind of grabbed those floral picks and I flipped them upside down so I could kind of see how I had laid them, if that makes any sense, because I want to start at the bottom and layer them over each other going up so that all of the stems are hidden and all of my hot glue is hidden. So here I'm trimming off the little bases of those. To secure those all together, I just used the longer frilly kind of stems, the wires on the end of them. I wrapped that around the base of the boxwood picks. That's how I got those all secure. That's all I did. You could totally use floral wire or I suppose you could use twine or something along those lines, whatever you have in your stash, but that was how I secured it. And now I'm just using massive amounts of hot glue to connect the two. I've got a piece of parchment paper underneath them because the hot glue will not stick to the parchment. It'll peel right up. And once that was all nice and cool, it did take a little bit of time. So you got to be patient with it. And patience is not my middle name, but we got it. So, trimming off some of the hot glue that had overflowed. And now I'm just tying my little bow right around that area to try and hide that. I started, and I said bow, but it was really just these were meant to be my tails. And now I'm going to create a bow. I started to tie a knot in it, and then I decided, I'm going to wait and tie the second part of this knot once I have my bow created. So I'm just doing 3 little loops on either side. They're not super little, but I guess it's just the way that I talk. But I'm getting them lined up, and I kind of flipped the ribbon underneath it. I don't know if you noticed that. I kind of tied it and then flipped the tails underneath the bow before I pulled them tight, and that kind of puts the knot on the back side of the bow. Now, I was hoping to just be able to fluff this up and have it be enough, but it was not. I've got some space right above the bow where I feel like it needs more coverage. So I'm going to create a second bow. And this time I'm going to do the back and forth method. So basically just folding it back and forth, um, kind of like an accordion style, if you will. So doing that, and then for this one, I think I had 5 loops on either side. Here you can see a little bit better what I'm talking about with the back and forth. I had trimmed it off to be able to work with it better. I have either 4 or 5 loops, but just do what makes your heart happy, right? What looks nice to your eyes. I'm going to tie it off in the middle with another smaller piece of ribbon. And then I'll just go ahead and start fluffing up my bow, and then I'll get it set right up on top of that other bow and try and see what's going to work best. I am visual. I have to work with things. You'll see it a little bit on another project. My first shot is not always the way that I have to go with things. I do have to have do-overs, but that's just part of my process, and part of the crafting process in general is part of the creative process. But you can see I've got this situated now. I just added some hot glue in there to secure it. If I had used a chenille stem to tie off the center of that, I would have used the chenille stem to attach it, but I just opted to use a piece of ribbon instead this time. And I didn't notch the ribbon this time for the bow. I just kind of went with it. So you certainly can notch it if you so choose. So now I'm just fluffing up all of the pieces, trying to get it to the shape that I'm looking for and make it nice and full. I'm going to tuck in a couple of these little ends here and create additional loops with them just to fill out the bottom part of that bow. So adding a little bit of hot glue in there, tucking in the ends into that glue to secure them, and then just manipulate the picks a little bit more. And now I'm going to flip over the back side. I found that some of my green ribbon was showing, so I'm just trimming off the part that is not needed. Being careful not to cut away any of the glue because I don't want to compromise the structure of my piece. And you can see I've got the loop there all ready for hanging, and this is done. I think this is super cute, but let me know what you think. DIY number 2. All right, this is a microfiber towel from the Dollar Tree. I've had it in my stash for a bit. I folded it in half with the fuzzier side on the inside. And now I have a piece of parchment paper that I am going to use to create a pattern. Now, I'm just going to hand draw this. You do not have to hand draw it if that intimidates you. You can find a silhouette on online and print it out and use that to trace with your parchment paper. But whatever works for you. I opted to hand draw it because I didn't want to have to try to find something. I had something specific in my head, and I didn't want to have to try and find that specific silhouette online and print it out and all of that. So as you can see, I've got my first iteration. It's not going to be the last. In fact, I think I went through 3 or 4 different tries before I got it to where I wanted it. Tried flipping it over. I'm like, no, I need a new piece of parchment. So as I was saying a little bit earlier, this is my process. I am visual and I have to try things. And if something doesn't work the way that I want it, I either start over or I go to plan B, whatever it may be. But I am essentially trying to draw a bunny here, the shape of a bunny. And I actually ended up being pretty happy with this shape here. And I had found something online, and so I was kind of using that as a guide, but I kind of ran out of room over on the right side, and he wasn't quite as tall as I would have liked. So I decided I was gonna, here I'm just kind of fine tuning it, so to speak. Um, Fixing the ears and whatever. But I did decide that I was going to try and make this shape, but just slightly larger. So you'll see that in a second. First, I started trying to cut it out, and then I was like, you know what? I don't want to cut it out yet. And then I went to grab my pins, and here's where I'm putting it on the fabric. I'm like, you know what? I want to make it larger. So grabbed another piece of parchment paper. I'm going to put it underneath. There we go. Put my new parchment paper over top so that you can see how it would be really easy to trace something with the parchment, right? And I'm using the basic shape that I already created. And here I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got to start again because I didn't move over to the left far enough. So anyway, I went ahead and I continued to work with this until I got it the way that I wanted it. And it doesn't have to be a bunny. It could be whatever shape you want. We're going to be sewing this. I'm actually going to be using my sewing machine again, you guys. Very happy that I figured out what was wrong with it. And so I've been able to sew things in recent months. But if you don't want to do a bunny, hey, you could do an egg. Why not do an egg shape, right? And sew an egg shape. That's Easter as well. But you could do a little chick. I don't know. There are a lot of different things you could do. But once I got this, and I'm sorry that I'm just showing you this process for so long. I should have cut some more of that out. But once I got the bunny the way that I wanted it, I went ahead and I pinned it through both layers of the fabric. All right. So I'm just pinning this on and going through both layers because I want to make sure that when I cut this out, both layers will be the same shape and they'll line up, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this all out. I will not torment you with all of the cutting, but I'm just going to follow the line all the way around. Be careful of the pins. Don't stick yourself. And just got it all the way around. And then I trimmed up some of the little spots where the fabric is a little bit thicker than what I normally work with. So some of it was kind of getting away from me underneath. So just trimmed that up a little bit. And now I've left the pattern on here. My bunny is still pinned together. I've left it on here. I need to be mindful of leaving an area unsewn so that I can stuff it. So I decided to start at the base of the tail. So where the top of his, not the top of his back, but the bottom of his back, where the back meets the tail, that is where I started. And I ran it back and forth a couple of times to anchor my stitches. And then I sewed all the way around the edge. And then I stopped at the base of the neck and ran it back and forth again. So now I'm taking out all my pins and I will remove the pattern. I just sewed right through the pattern, not a big deal. So I'm going to pull that all off and get that cleared away. And then I will be ready to turn my little bunny right side out and that's why I put the fluffy side in when I folded it, right? The fluffier side. Both of them are kind of fluffy, but turning it right side out, some of those tighter areas needed some help. So I had grabbed a little dowel to help me get everything right side out all the way into the little crevices. And now I am ready to stuff this little guy. So I've got my fiber fill. I'm going to go ahead and stuff it. I'm going to use that little dowel again to help me get some of that fiber fill up into some of those little tighter spots. And then I did also use some of the scraps of the microfiber towel to also stuff the bunny. So, waste not, want not, right? Now I have my thread with a longer needle. I think this is actually a doll making needle that I had picked up at the craft store a while back. And I enjoy working with it when I'm doing things like this. But I'm going to be grabbing the fabric from inside the split and pulling it tight, and that's going to help hide my stitches. Right now, this is going to be somewhat forgiving because the fluff of the fabric is going to help hide my stitches. I wasn't really keen on putting the opening on the back side of the bunny because it tends to be more visible usually, but the fabric, this type of fabric, definitely saved me, right? So you honestly can't even see it, especially when you rub your fingers over it, kind of back and forth, kind of rub it a little bit once you're all done sewing it. So now I've got some black embroidery floss that I'm going to be working with. I'm going to create some whiskers first. So I'm going to run once I have this on here and I'm situated, I'm going to run my needle straight through his little face and at the points where I feel like the whiskers should be. So gonna run that through. Now I probably made this more difficult than it needed to be. I was just trying not to waste any of my embroidery floss. So I just ran it back and forth a few times, leaving loops on either side that I will later trim, not trim, but snip. I'll snip the ends of the loops so that I just have little strings coming off of both sides. But first I've just got to even everything out and make sure that everything is the same length. I did this so I have a loop on either side and then I have an end on either side, right? And so in the end, once I snip the loop on either side, I will have 3 little whiskers on each side of his little face. So you saw how I did that. Now to keep them from sliding, I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot at the base right near his little face of each whisker. So just tying off a little knot. I'm just checking to see which end that one belongs to and tying a knot in the other end of it. And I did that for all 6 whiskers. And now I am using some yarn. I'm pulling the strands apart though because the yarn was thicker than what I wanted. I didn't have any light pink embroidery floss, so I am using the yarn that I have in my stash from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just using 2 of the strands that make up the yarn. I think it was 4 strands that were kind of twisted together to create the yarn. And I am using 2 of them. I'm coming in through the back of his head. You're probably wondering why, but it's because I don't want to have to try and figure out how to create an anchor knot where his nose is going to be. So I came in through the back of the head and left a really long tail inside his little head. Hopefully that makes sense. I basically stopped pulling the yarn through when I saw it disappear into the back of his head. Hopefully that makes sense. So just creating a little nose there, and now I'm back with the black embroidery floss to create his eyes. I'm going to do the same thing, kind of leaving a tail of the embroidery floss inside. You saw me waiting to see when it disappeared. I'm leaving that tail inside of there just to help keep it from coming unraveled. And then I'm doing a little French knot for his eye. Thank you to all of my subscribers who helped me remember what that knot is called. So doing a little French knot. And then I went to attempt it on the other side, but I ended up running out of the black. I'm not out of it. You can see I still have some of the embroidery floss there, but it ended up being too short for the needle that I was working with. So I had to cut it off, and I just ended up tying a bunch of little knots by hand. So that is definitely an option. If you don't want to do a French knot, you can certainly just tie little knots up against the side of his little face. And I just tied, I think it was 3 or 4 of them over top of one another until it was about the same size as the French knot that I had on the first side. So once I had his eye done, I went ahead and I stuck my needle back through that eye, through to the other side. And again, I'm sorry, I'm off camera, but until it was through far enough that I was able to rethread the needle so that I could pull the embroidery floss all the way through. Now the two pieces of it were too wide to get through the needle at once, so I just did them one at a time and pulled that through. And then I was able to go ahead and trim off the excess and then just pull on his little eye a little bit, and that just kind of pulled the embroidery floss back into his head. So that tail again was pulled in. So he's all sewn up now. And I have some ribbon from the Dollar Tree, just cutting off a little strand. And I'm just going to make a simple little bow here, just a tie your shoelaces bow. And I don't know why I have so much trouble tying bows right side up. My bows always come out better when I tie them upside down. I can't for the life of you, for the life of me, tell you why, but watch this. So all I did was after I tied the initial part, I flipped it upside down and tie my bow. Look how beautiful that bow is now. I don't know why I can't do it right side up. I just have no idea. Maybe it's the way that I'm starting my little base tie. You know how you tie it as the beginning of a knot to start your bow? I wonder if I need to flip the way that I do that. I don't know. But anyway, let me know what you think of this. DIY number 3. All right, this is a frame that was in my stash. It was literally taken out of the trash. I'm using my celery chalk paint, giving it 2 coats of paint. I had pulled this frame apart for a different project and it ended up being a flop. This was probably a couple of years ago at least. And so it's just been sitting in my stash, and I figured, you know what, I would use it for this. I was inspired by something that I saw online, so I'm using my burlap type ribbon. It's not exactly burlap, but it kind of has that burlap look to it. And I'm going to apply some ribbon going across and then also up and down. So once I have that trimmed off, I'm going to flip it over and get it ready to adhere with hot glue. I am not pulling it super tight when I do this. I am leaving it a little bit loose because we're going to be doing something with the front of it and we're going to need to have a little bit of give. So just using my hot glue, I had folded the ribbon under because I like clean edges. Used my hot glue on there, and I'll do that all the way around with each of the 4 pieces of ribbon, or the 4 ends of the ribbon. So now you can see I've got a little bit of give there. I'm going to grab some jute cord from my stash. This is actually just a scrap piece that I'm using. So I'm going to wrap this around the middle of the ribbons, going both ways, and I'm going to be pulling it taut. So we're essentially creating a cross shape here over the frame. And I'm just going to pull it as tight as I can, and I think I tied a knot, and now with the excess I'm going to end up tying a bow as well. So I think maybe I was actually trying to get it a little bit tighter there. So I'm just getting it as tight as I possibly can, tying that off, making my little bow, trimming off that one end that was a little wonky. And now I'm going to grab these pip berries. These are gold. They're left over from Christmas. If I had had red or even like an ivory, I think that that would have been really pretty. The gold is nice also, but it kind of, it doesn't stand out as much as another color might because of the background colors that I've used here. I've got really muted shades between the brownish burlap type kind of ribbon and then the celery chalk paint. They're just very muted. I personally like the colors, and I hope you are enjoying them too, but use whatever colors you want, whatever colors make you happy. You could use you know, an Easter colored ribbon for this if you would like, but this is what I opted to go with, something a little bit more rustic looking, and just manipulating the pip berries into little squigglies until I had it the way I liked it. And that is pretty much it for this project. So let me know what you think. Now it's time for a shout out timeout. Cute rose, a hippity hoppity into spring, and those welcome signs. I love it. And beautiful Karen, what a pretty, pretty cross you've created. And sweet Mary, I love this little bunny, the two-tone. I love the pink and the chocolate together. And pretty Sharon, those birdhouses are absolutely gorgeous. And nice Tammy. Tammy's been busy, and I love all those beautiful colors. All right, I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, this is so simple. I probably shouldn't even call it a DIY, but I have my Spanish moss that I've been working with for a long time. I've made so many different things with this bag of Spanish moss, you guys. It was $7.99. I can't talk. $7.99 at the Hobby Lobby. It was such a great deal because it is lasting me forever. But I'm essentially layering that with little Easter eggs inside my glass vase. That's it. You know, like I said, it's kind of hard to call this a DIY or a craft because it's so simple, so easy, but I think it really does make a really nice statement. And you don't have to use eggs. You could use lemons or stones or the little moss stones, those dark green ones from the Dollar Tree. Mix those in with the lighter colored Spanish moss. Clearly, I didn't like the way that I had it the first time, so I am doing it again. So you get to see it all over in a slightly different way, but such an easy project. And I actually love this. I am going to have this on display in my home, and I hope that you like it too. But leave me a comment and let me know what you think of this one.
Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the projects, remember to give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which one was your favorite. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.